Hey everyone, welcome to Breakthrough Conversations. My name is Danielle Perry and I'm the host. And as always, I want to thank y'all so much for tuning into this podcast. If you are new, this is a podcast where I interview people of all ages and they share a bit of their story about how God has helped them to overcome a difficult challenge or situation in their lives, or maybe they're on their way to overcoming with God's help. Well, y'all, I am super excited today because this episode features another youth. And she's none other than Miss Iyana Hood. And if you tuned into the last two episodes, those episodes featured her mother, Miss Lucille Patterson, who talked about her journey as a single mom of three. Well, this podcast, like I said, it features people who share a bit of their difficulties and situations of how God has helped them to overcome. And you will hear a little bit of what Iyana has shared regarding that area. But this episode is going to be more so focused on her experiences with God. And so the title of today's episode is called My Encounters with God. And I think it's important that we make sure that we're listening to our youth when they talk about encounters, experiences, dreams, visions that they've had involving God. And I have had young people on this podcast in the past who have spoken a bit about their experiences as well. And so I want us to make sure that we're continuing to listen to our youth, because sometimes it's easy to think, oh, they're just imagining things. They just want attention. But no, God is really speaking through, and he is using these young people in a mighty way. So without further ado, y'all, here it is, episode 16. Enjoy and be blessed. None other than Miss Iyana Hood. What's up?
Not too much. I'm good.
You good?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you on today. And today we're actually going to be speaking about your encounters with God.
Okay.
So this should be interesting because it's going to come from your perspective. And I don't want to reveal your age yet. You're going to tell us that. But it's going to be good because you are a young person. And you're going to be talking about just some of your experiences with God. And I think it's important that other young people hear about those experiences. So I want you to first just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Well, my name is Iyana Hood. I'm 15. And I love my family. I love God. And I think this is going to be cool. I think it's going to be fun.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right in. I want you to first tell us, before you had your first encounter with God, describe what was taking place in your life at the time. Did you have a relationship with him? Were you growing into a relationship with him? Talk to us about that.
Well, as far back as I can remember, I was 3 when I had my first encounter.
Okay.
So running around the house tearing stuff up, pretty much what was happening at the time before, I guess. I don't know. So, yeah, I was 3. Yes.
Wow, and you remember that?
I do.
Wow, okay. So you were 3 years old. So did you know who God was at 3?
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you know who he was at that age?
Well, my mom always talked to me about God, and we always read the Bible and prayed, and we went to church. But I think it was a story my mom told me about when she was pregnant with me, about God anointing me in her belly. So I think that's how I just knew. Because as far back as I can remember, I've always believed.
Okay. And we had your mom on a previous episode where she actually told us a little bit about that, right? And she was letting us know, that experience about you being anointed in her womb, or you being in her womb and being anointed. So, wow, that's awesome. So, did you ask God? Well, we know you didn't ask God to have an encounter with him. It happened at 3. But I would ask you, have you ever asked God since then to have an encounter with him?
I have.
You have?
Yes.
And how old were you?
Well, at different ages, I think maybe after that, when I was 8, I started asking for an out-of-body experience with him.
Okay.
And I think I've asked for other things, but I think most of the time from 8 to 15, that's what I've asked for.
Wow. 8 to 15. And you said an outer body experience.
Yes.
What is that?
Like being in the presence of God outside of this fleshly body. I felt the presence of God like here in this body, but I wanted to feel it like where it's my soul and it's God. I thought that would be like, just awesome.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So I want you to describe your first encounter at 3 years old. What was that like?
Okay, so it was this time where we were living with my nana. It was a few of us there, so like whenever we got food stamps, the food would just go because there's a lot of people in the house. So this particular time, I think most of the people in the house had moved out, but this day we didn't have any food in the house. So I went and I told my mom that I was kind of sad about that. Like, we don't have nothing to eat because I love food, you know. So we didn't have nothing to eat, and I told her I was sad about it. I was like, what we gonna do? And she was like, we read, I'm sorry, I don't remember where it is, but that God will supply all of our needs according to his riches and glory.
Philippians 4.
And in Matthew, that we shouldn't worry about what we'll wear or eat and everything. So I was like, okay. So after that, we took a nap, and I heard somebody knocking on the door. And I woke her up. Well, I was trying to wake her up, and I was telling her that someone was at the door, and she told me to get it. And I was 3. Mama told me, never touch the door, go get somebody. So I was like, I was trying to wake her up again, like, somebody's at the door. And she was like, go get it. So I was like, okay. And I went and I got the door. And when I opened the door, it was a man there. He had, like, a big bag of food, but I don't remember what his face looked like, but I remember it was glowy. Like, he had a glow around his face. And the way the house was built, the window was right next to the door. And it had a porch where I had to walk a little ways to the left in order to walk off of the porch. So if I went from the door to the window, I would have seen him walk off the porch. After I shut the door and I looked out the window, he wasn't there anymore. Like,
wow.
Just wasn't there.
Wow.
And I was like, okay.
Right.
But I ran in the room and I was jumping on the bed. I was like, Mom, he was right. He said he would do it, and he did. He would supply all I needed according to his riches and glory.
Yeah.
I remember I was just so excited. And then that Sunday I gave my life to Christ.
Wow. And this was at 3?
3.
3 years old. So what was your mom's reaction? You remember?
I just remember her smiling about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Because I was super excited.
Absolutely. So do you think that person was an angel?
I do.
And we know that the Bible says that angels can appear in human form, right? So, wow, that's amazing. So, after this encounter, you said that you gave your life to Christ. How did you notice your life begin to change after that?
I didn't realize that that's what it was at first, but I started experiencing a lot of spiritual warfare. I didn't know that that's what it was at first, but knowing now, that's what it was. And it was actually kind of hard for me. I would talk to my mom about the things that I went through, but I didn't know how to properly explain it. So it might sound like a kid that was afraid of a monster or anything, so that was kind of hard. Because I didn't know exactly how to deal with it.
Yeah. And when you say a kid that's afraid of a monster, is that you saying that you saw things that scared you, maybe in your room or something like that?
I did.
Okay, so for others that I know who've experienced those sorts of things, we hear the boogeyman as a joke. Everybody knows. Everybody has heard the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that started from, but when you begin to grow in your knowledge about God and about the devil, we know that the devil has demons. And again, I don't know where the boogeyman came from, but who's to say that the boogeyman wasn't a demon?
Right.
That a little kid saw. So, that does happen sometimes, and I believe that that's the enemy's way to, of course, try to put fear in a child's heart, right? So would you say that began to happen as far as fear in your life?
Yes, because I remember when I was little, I wasn't afraid of nothing, not even the dark. Like, people might be afraid of me because I was walking around the house in the dark. I was talking with my mom about that the other day. I would just walk through it. But I started to get a little scared, and it was like, 'Cause I remember I was on, like, one part of the house, and I had to walk through a dark room to get to the kitchen. That's where I was going. And I remember I was freaked out, but I remember telling myself, just breathe. It's only dark for a time, and then just make it to the other side. But yeah, I started to get scared. And it was hard for me to sleep at night too.
Yeah. And I know your mom, knowing her as a woman of God, I know that she was covering you and praying for you at that time. So I want you to describe another encounter that you've had with God.
Okay. Well, since I spoke about the out-of-body experience, I guess I can share that because I have had one.
Okay.
I've had a few, actually.
Okay.
I think 3. But I'll share the most recent. I remember this one day I was praying. I was on the phone with my aunt Stephenie. And I was talking to her because I was feeling kind of discouraged about some things. We were just talking, and she was talking about, like, choosing to trust God and telling God that we trust Him, right? But I didn't want to say it when she told me to. Not because I didn't want to trust God, but just because I knew I didn't, and I didn't want to lie. And at this time, I was learning a lot about spiritual warfare, how to fight, and everything. And it was kind of scary in some aspects, but I was getting a hang of it, I guess. I don't know if that's right. But so after we got off the phone, I prayed. I remember telling God that I didn't want to lie to Him and tell Him that I trust Him when I knew that I didn't. Because I always got worried whenever something happened. So I knew, because, if you trust God, you trust Him. You're not worried about anything. But I would worry and stress about a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So I told Him that I would take a leap of faith and tell Him and trust Him with a certain thing that I had been praying about at the time. At this time, God was having us pray for restoration. Like, not just for us, but for the world. And so I had been praying for that, but I prayed for that for myself because I knew that I needed it because I had a lot going on. So that's what I prayed for. And then I went to sleep, and when I was asleep, my dream was kind of weird, but I remember seeing, I won't say like rainbow, but like, it was purple, like pink, like a circle, and it was like sparkly, and it came down and on me, and it was heavy, like it's like I went through it, So, and the next thing I remember is being in the presence of God, like, but I was just, all I could do was just praise Him, but I remember it was just the best feeling. And I learned a lot of things just in this experience. Like, it's being in the presence of God that way. I just know that His word is true. You just feel it. Everything that He says and everything that He says He is, being in His presence that way, I could just feel all of it. And it was awesome. Different things happened, but when I eventually came back, I thought it was so awesome because when I came back with the song. It was the presence of the Lord is here. That was on my mind. And I felt completely different. And I remember I went downstairs and I told my mom about it, and I called my aunt Stephenie about it, and she was reminding me of the conversation we had the night before, when I was stressing and worrying and stuff. But I didn't remember that. I was like, huh?
Right.
When did that happen? And I remember I was like, oh, I forgot about that. But in that experience, He did so many things. He, in different ways, He helped me to not be so hard on myself. I remember for a certain period of time, I started to have real bad anxiety about being in a car. I don't know why. It's just real bad anxiety. So when I got in the car, the anxiety was gone. I didn't have it after that. It was just a lot changed.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Wow. That's awesome. And when you say that you're in the presence of God and you can feel His presence, What does that feel like for you?
I think it's kind of hard to describe, like, the feeling. It's just, I think it's nothing I've ever felt before, and like the realest thing I've ever felt at the same time. And it's definitely a place that I want to be. There were smells too, and there were winds. It literally smells like a breath of fresh air. Like, I've never, like, it was so pure and so clean. And it was kind of like it was music radiating off of his body. But, I mean, I don't know how to explain the sound, but it was kind of like music. But with the smell, the best way that I think I can describe that is like if it's springtime and like all of the trees, the grass and the flowers, like all of it is fresh, if that. And you know, when the wind blows, there's just a sweet smell in the air. That's the best way I can describe it.
Wow. And did you see Jesus in this encounter that you're talking about?
I wasn't able to see. My eyes were closed.
Okay. Because when you said he, I wasn't sure who you were referring to.
Well, God. Yeah.
God, right? Because I think you told me of an encounter. Well, I don't know if you want to share this, but you told me of an encounter. So I wasn't sure if it was, okay, you talking about God the Father, or did you see maybe a glimpse of Jesus? So I wasn't sure. But you said it was God, right? Okay. So after this experience, or after you shared the most recent one, right? The most recent one. So you've had multiple. So after these encounters with God, do you go to the Bible to kind of see what you experienced and if it's in the Bible, to find any symbolism, or what did that mean, or, you know, just kind of find a backing to confirm that what you saw was from God?
I didn't, like, when I was younger, but I think most of them were pretty transparent, so, like, I understood. But I still shared it with other people, like, maybe there was something that I missed, I don't know.
Okay.
But I think most of them were pretty clear, so
Okay.
no, I didn't.
And you would say that each encounter that you've had was from God, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So you just said that you do share your encounters with people. So who do you talk to? Like, who do you know? This is who I can go to with this, because, you know, we can't trust everybody with those kinds of experiences. So who do you go to when you have these encounters?
Most of all, my mom. I still pray about it if I don't understand. But my mom, some of my spiritual leaders, and even with them, I've prayed about them as well. So I've seen them, like, in person, but God has shown me things about them, like some of the things that I might not see. So that's how I know I can trust those people. But yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And that's important. And that was one of the questions I had for you, because, you know, when we have experiences like that, especially as we're growing and as we're learning more about God, we want to make sure that these things are from God, because we know the enemy can come as an angel of light and try to deceive us, right? So that's good that you have your mom and you have spiritual leaders that you can go to and talk to these things about, for sure.
Even with that, though, before I had this encounter, and it's funny that you said that, that actually happened to me. I had a dream that it was just some person, I don't know. It looked like a demon, but like it was like a human at the same time.
Okay.
And then something happened, and then it looked like maybe it could have been God or like an angel, but I could feel like, and this is disgusting, but I could feel like breath on my face, but like maybe breathing hard, like an angry type thing. And I was confused, because I was like, I don't know if I was in present God, I don't think it would feel like this.
Right.
It didn't necessarily feel bad, but it felt normal, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I was kind of confused, but when I woke up, I prayed about it. And, well, when I woke up, I felt the Spirit leave the room when I woke up.
Okay.
So I was like, that was weird.
Right.
And I was praying about it. And I talked to my mom and my sister about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that wasn't God.
Right.
It wasn't.
Right.
So that happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had that encounter I just said.
Okay.
God.
Okay. Wow. And I'm glad you shared that, because it's good to know too that, you know, we know that the devil is a counterfeit of God when it comes to just the things that he'll try to duplicate. And so we have to know that, you know, when God decides that he wants to give us encounters and give us dreams and visions, the enemy is going to try the same thing. Right? So it's good to know that, because that'll help with not being deceived. And of course, going to the word to make sure, like, why did I feel like that? Like, when God breathes on people, it didn't say that they felt that way when he breathed on them, right? So, absolutely. So, I want you to talk to us about hearing God's voice audibly. Has that ever happened? And if so, describe.
Yes, I've heard God's voice audibly plenty of times.
Okay.
I don't remember the very first time, but I remember. What did you say? What's that like?
Yeah. What is that like? Describe, what was that like?
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. How old? Do you remember how old you were when you first heard his voice audibly?
I don't.
Okay.
I do remember, like, throughout my, well, I'm still a teenager, but from like 13 to 15, maybe even 12 to 15, I've grown a lot in my relationship with God. So, I mean, he talks to me in different ways, but audibly is one that I was most familiar with.
Okay. And when you say audibly, because when I hear audibly, I'm thinking, Danielle. That's what I'm thinking. Like, there's this voice that I can hear as if God is actually here.
Right.
So is that how you're describing it, or is it different?
No. That would be scary.
No.
But no, his voice it is authoritative, but it's like it's gentle and sweet at the same time.
Okay.
And it's like it's very distinct too. Like, I can tell that it's him. But if I ever had moments where I was confused, I would still pray about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Good stuff. So, what are other ways that you hear God speak, and what does it sound like? Or what does he sound like?
That's interesting. Other than audibly, right? Through dreams, you know, reading the word, through people. What does he sound like?
Yeah, and I want you to describe, because there are many youth your age that don't know yet what God's voice sounds like. So if you could kind of just describe as best as you can, you know, how he speaks to you, and think about speaking to somebody your age so that they'll know, like, oh, okay, they can kind of get an idea more of what he may sound like.
Like, excuse me, like his voice, or like what he would say?
Just when you know he's speaking, like, you know that that's God, how do you know it's him?
Oh, okay. Whenever God talks to me, I don't know why, I always get this strong feeling in my stomach.
In your
like
stomach.
It kind of burns a little bit.
Okay.
Like when he's speaking through me or to me. But
Okay.
yeah. And I think one of the things that I prayed before is that he would make my ears sensitive to his voice, so that I'll know the difference between him and me,
Right.
or, you know, a demon or something like that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
And that's a good prayer to pray, because we know that God hears our prayers. So for you to pray that, God, make me sensitive to your voice, he answered that prayer for you. So you said that sometimes you feel it in your stomach. I have that too. Like, I can feel God in my stomach when he's speaking to me or speaking through me. What about maybe when you're praying or you're reading the word? Is there another indication that you know this is God speaking?
Like, if I'm searching the Bible for a specific thing?
Yeah, you're just reading. You know, sometimes you may be reading the Bible and it jumps out at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, Holy Spirit, I know that's you, right? So describe that. Like, what is that like?
I think it's pretty much what you said. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of jumps out. And I don't know, it's like, there's a connect, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, okay, if I can give an example.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading, dang, what was I reading? I think Exodus
Mm-hmm.
or maybe Numbers. And God, continuously in the Bible, God was saying that, what was that Exodus? I'm sorry. God continuously said that Israel was unfaithful.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, I was like, it's like, I don't know. My question was, why were they unfaithful? I mean, I know what they was doing. It was crazy.
Right.
But, so yeah, that was my question. And I was looking for something one day.
Mm-hmm.
And God told me that Israel was unfaithful because they didn't repent and come back to him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if that's a good explanation.
Okay.
I think it's kind of like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good that you explained it, and I think sometimes when we give a practical explanation, like, yeah, I feel it in my stomach, it's like, it may sound weird, but it's a good explanation because I've heard that actually from several people that they can feel it in their body when God is speaking to them. So that's a good practical explanation. So that was good. So I want you to describe, because you said that God has spoken through you.
Mm-hmm.
So describe how God has used you prophetically.
Well, one experience that I've had, I think this was maybe not, I don't want to say the first time, but the first time in this way.
Mm-hmm.
I know that God has used me to speak to people before.
Mm-hmm.
I may not have been aware of it at the time, but he has.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular time, I was praying for one of my cousins. Well, me and my family,
Mm-hmm.
corporately praying for one of my cousins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was in a tough situation. And I remember just feeling really hot and like, I don't know, tingly a little bit. And then my stomach was burning, and I started praying, like, but you know, wailing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was doing. And after that, it's like, I don't know, it's like I could feel his hand on my back, I think. And then he just starts speaking to the room, but not just the room, to me, like specifically to me, like call my name out through me, you know?
Wow.
Like, that's crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, spoke to everybody in the room, everybody on the phone.
Wow.
Like, it was awesome. That was just the first time like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
He's come different ways. Like, that way was like to like encourage us and reassure us and to let us know about a lot of the things that's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I remember you sharing that with me and how that was just such a powerful moment for you and your family. I think your mom was also like, oh my gosh, yes, the way it was just such an awesome moment. So, and I think God has used you to speak to me because you've shared a couple dreams with me that you've had about me.
Yes.
You know, so, and I encourage you and other young people who may be listening to make sure that you're not afraid because of your age to share things that God may speak to you to share with someone else, especially if they're older, because that can be intimidating.
Yeah.
It can be intimidating. But definitely do it if God is saying do it. You know, got to be obedient.
Yeah, I think that's very important too, because at a certain period of time I had a Jeremiah moment, but because it was just a lot of spiritual warfare going on, and my mom was trying to protect me, and because you know, when I think some people are inconsiderate, some people may do it intentionally. But when you grow, I think, in the prophetic and wherever God will have you, people start to pull on you, like, a lot. So it was kind of, I mean, I love doing God's will. Like, that's what I want to do. I think it's cool to have these experiences, because each time that I had an experience, I felt like I got closer to God. So I was like, I'm just ready. Whenever you want to use me, I'm right here, you know? So that was cool, but people started pulling on me, and it's like, like, after I think everybody was kind of, I don't know if up is the right word, but at a good standpoint, I was, like, kind of dried out, I guess. Like, drained. So, and my mom was talking to somebody. I don't think I remember who it was. But it was one of the people that would continuously ask me to pray with them and everything. And she was trying to protect me, and she was like, maybe, like, not telling a person not to ask me for prayer, but, like, to make sure, like, God is telling them to, you know, just because I started to get drained. And then I think she said something about me being young, right? And after that, after a while of dealing with a lot of spiritual warfare, I was like, maybe I am too young for this. Like, this is a lot. But as soon as I said that, this is God talking to me audibly again. He told me not to say that. Don't say that. Not too young. So, yeah, never too young, never too old. There's no age limit. One of the things that I actually wanted to get to is God having no respect of person. Meaning age, nationality, like, God wants. All souls belong to God.
That's right. Absolutely. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I'm thinking of many scriptures where God called people young. I think Josiah reigned as king at 8 years old, but I think there was a king younger than him that may have been 7. Don't quote me, but I think. But yeah, God can use anybody, any age, male, female, young, old. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's good. That's good. How has, or talk to us about a moment of breakthrough in your life, whether it was an encounter that allowed you to break through a situation that was happening, or whatever you want to share. What was a moment of breakthrough for you?
Okay. We actually talked about this before. This is kind of funny. I was gonna say something different, but I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
It was 8th grade? Yeah, 8th grade with the teacher. I had a teacher that was very difficult. Very, very difficult. Like, just rude every day. For no reason. Like, why?
Right.
But I wasn't too concerned about that in the beginning, because I was just like, as long as my grade is right, that's all I care about. So I was doing, I was doing well. But then I had a C, and it stayed there, like, for a while. And I was like, well, I'm doing the work. And, like, because some things, like, if it's a test or quiz, some apps will let you know what you scored on it. So if I know what I'm scoring, like, I feel like, I don't know, a C ain't right. So I've tried many times to respectfully talk to him about it, or even if it's just greeting him when I got on, because it was virtual. So even if it was just greeting, I would do that. But he was always so rude about everything. And usually the teachers recorded the sessions in case we need to go back or anything like that. So I remember this one particular time where I asked him if he could record the session. He was like, he would record it after we watched the video, because in his class it was history too, but it was kind of difficult because he would zoom through stuff, and he was just rude. Not just to me, but to other people. And he was just rude. He didn't want to wait. He would just be going fast. So I needed him to record so that I could go back. But so after the video was over, I asked him if he could start the recording. I don't remember what he said. I remembered it, but I don't remember what he said. But it was something so rude, and I got so mad. And I know it's not right, but I was about to type some stuff in the chat. But I didn't, because
Good job.
I'm gonna remain respectful. So, but I had to take a break from it, because he was, and that was something that's actually been kind of big for me. Because I'm used to, well, when I was younger, whenever somebody did or said anything rude to me, I was just on it. Like, I was kind of snappy. That's not good. But I would usually respond. But for a while, God has been teaching me, like, that I can't fight that way.
Right. That's
not the way to fight. So holding my tongue has been kind of hard.
Okay.
But I've been doing it, and I think I've been doing great.
Okay.
It's not like it was. I mean, I think it depends on the person and the situation, which I'm still working on it. That's not a good thing. But, yeah.
As long as you're working on it.
So, yeah. So that was kind of hard for me in his class. So I took a break from the Zoom. I took a break for the rest of the class. I was so mad. I was so mad, because he's just so rude. But he was just annoying throughout the rest of the year. But once it got to my 8th grade graduation, we had to drive in because of COVID and everything.
Right.
But once we got there, I saw that each student, I watched what they would do. They would get the paper, they would hug each teacher that they had, and they would take some pictures and they would leave. He was one of the teachers that they hugged. I was like, I am not hugging that man. I'm not. I'm going to hug everybody else because I liked everybody else. Okay. It's always one. I always have good relationships with my teachers. But it's always somebody.
Okay.
Like, But I was like, I'm not hugging him. I'm going to walk past. But so I got out and I did hug him. I ended up hugging him. I didn't know why. Because I planned on walking past him.
Okay.
But I did, and then we took pictures and everything. And ever since that day, I was thinking like, why did I do that?
Okay.
But God, He told me we gotta love people anyway. So, and I think that really helped me. I felt a release after that. After He told me that we have to love people anyway. I was like, you're right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I don't know if that counts as breakthrough.
No, it does, because there'll always be somebody that's not quite likable throughout life. So that can be your reference point. This is where God showed me that no matter who they are, no matter how I was treated by them, I can still love them.
Right.
I can still hug them. Right? So if it happens again in the future, you have that as a reference point. So I would absolutely say that was a moment of breakthrough for you. Okay. Yeah. Good stuff. So, did you share already how God has spoken to you through a dream?
I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, share an experience where God has spoken to you through a dream.
Okay. Let me think. Okay, I'm saying this one. So this was when PL first started talking about the Joshua anointing and everything.
And Pastor Lawrence, for anybody who doesn't know PL. Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say that, but I didn't know. So I was wondering if I was, a part of that. So I think I prayed about it, and then I had a dream that I was at my nana's house, and most of my family was there, and something was going on, and I think somebody was about to fight or something, and then I was kind of upset about it, but then I remember I started praying. Immediately I started praying, and I asked God to send His Spirit heavily that He'll blow the doors open and the windows and just fill the house. And as I asked Him to do it, He did it.
Wow.
And instead of fighting, everybody just started worshiping, and I was like, wow, right? And so I told my Aunt Stephenie about it, and a little while after I told her, she called me, and she told me that God told her to tell me that I have the Joshua anointing.
Wow. And she didn't know that you were praying about that?
No.
Wow. Absolutely. God speaks in so many ways. He speaks in so many ways. And I think that when we hone in on how He speaks to us, it'll blow our minds. And I don't think it'll ever get old. Like having a dream, God speaking to us through a dream will never get old when we really realize, like, God is speaking to me. Like, this is great. This is awesome, So that's good. Can
I share one more?
Yes, go ahead.
I was thinking about this time. This was very therapeutic for me. I had a dream about, like, some of the things that I went through when I was little with some of my family members. Mom, she takes care of us. She always has.
Yes, she does.
Because Dad isn't really around like that, and he wasn't at this time. And sometimes he would go away for like years at a time. And I think this was one of the times that he was just away.
Okay.
So, yeah, Mom, she had to work a lot. So she would leave us with on Stephenie. Stephenie was our babysitter. But at the time, more of my aunts and uncles were living at my Nana's house. And they had kids and everything. So I was usually left out of a lot of things.
Okay.
Which I didn't have a problem with at first because I would always make my own fun. But at a certain point, it really sucked. Like, I didn't understand why. But yeah. So I had, in my dream, it was like I was back there at that time. It was a situation that actually took place. And it was really hard and frustrating for me. So it was two people that, one of them lied on me, right? And the other one only saw half of what I did. So I guess they believed what the other person that lied on me was saying. So they told half of what I did, but they added a lie to it.
Okay.
And they told my mom, and my mom was upset. But the reason why my mom was upset was because she thought that I'm just acting crazy while she's at work. And I think that's because whenever Mom would come home after work, if somebody did something to me, I will always forget to tell her. Because, I don't know, I was just excited that she was there. And excitement was usually the thing for me when I was little. Bounce around about anything. But yeah, I was really excited when Mom came home, so I would always forget to tell her. Like, things that happened, so it did look like I was just acting crazy when she was at work. So, but she didn't know about the way that the people were when she wasn't there. They would act a certain way when she was, and act a certain way when she wasn't there. So she was just thinking that she was probably just tired of, the bad behavior in her mind. But it wasn't that. I was being, lied on and all that stuff. So after they told my mom, I remember in the dream, I can see, like, Mom yelling at me. And the two people, well, the one person that said that lied on me, and the other person, it's like I could see them, but I could see demons behind them. And they were taunting me as Mom was yelling at me. And I remember I was just, in the dream, I was screaming and I was crying because that was a really hard place for me. Like, I went through a lot of things by myself around that time. I think it was because it was only like maybe 9 of us, like 9 of the grandchildren at that time. It's a whole lot more now, but it was only 9 at that time. So it was like the oldest 5, and it was 2 girls older than me. We were around the same age, but I was always left alone. They would always take Suleiman. Sometimes one of my aunts would take Destiny, but it was just me. If Mommy wasn't there, it was just me. But I remember that it sucked for me. So I guess that was the screaming and the crying part. But when I woke up, I think I told you about this before. When I woke up, I was just crying. But and I was praying about something before. I was asking God why I was a certain way. That's what it was. I was asking why I was a certain way. And when I woke up, this is the part that I was saying was very therapeutic for me. Because as he was showing me these things, he was pulling them out of my character, out of my personality.
Okay.
So, and he was telling me that the reason why I was certain ways was because of that. Or, and some things is because of other things. But he was saying it was mainly, that's where it rooted from. It was from that.
Wow.
And I just remember I balled up. I was just crying.
Yeah. Wow. So he showed you the root. Wow. That's powerful.
And it was, because my sister, she came upstairs after I was crying. She was asleep, though. But she came up there after, like, when I was crying, and she told me about the dream that she had. She said she had a dream that demons were surrounding me and taunting me. So as I was having this dream, she had that dream.
I think I do remember that. Wow. That's powerful.
And stuff.
It's okay. That's powerful. I have a question on here about you receiving deliverance through a dream. Would you say deliverance came through that dream?
Definitely.
Okay. And how
a lot
so?
A lot of things changed after that. Like the way I thought and the way I felt about certain things wasn't the same. But it was, another thing that I loved about it is I could feel like, God is so awesome. I could feel, like, his peace and his love, like, just comforting me as I was letting these things go.
That's good. That's good. I love that. I love that. So I have a question on here. For anybody who's skeptical of these experiences, right? Sometimes people will say, oh, she's 15. What does she know? You know,
Right.
she's just imagining things. Or there's people who, I mean, I think I believe what she's saying, but it just sounds far-fetched because I've never experienced it, right? So what do you say to people who maybe have not experienced these things? You know, what would you say to them as far as just anyone who would say those encounters aren't real?
Well, I think it's just, like, it's always good to see for yourself, I think. I feel like you can't necessarily, like, if there's evidence for a thing, well, you can say it if you want to, but if you, I just feel like it's not, I don't know if fair is a word, but, like, you can't say it's not true if you haven't sought it out for yourself, because there's evidence for it. And you can experience it yourself. And I think that's just the best thing to do, to look into it for yourself.
And where would they go to look for it?
See, that depends on where you at. But I know praying is definitely a leap of faith for a lot of people. So praying to God, just calling out to him. I was gonna say church, but I mean, church is where it's supposed to be, where people are able to go. But a lot of churches aren't really filled with God the way that they should be, and the focus is on other things.
You're right.
But I think praying about a church to go to too, and just, reading the Bible.
Yeah, that's good. I agree. I agree. We kind of hit on this earlier, but do you think it's wise to share your experiences with everyone?
No, I don't think it's wise to share with everyone. Like you said, everybody can't be trusted. And I think also there's different things that you'll go through in your life. Like, there's spaces where you may be able to go through it with a few people, maybe just one person, and it may be just you and God. And I think it's really important to pray about and to know who you can go to. I mean, the Bible does say that if any among you are ill, to go to the elders of the church and pray. So yeah, that's important. But, like, there's places that you can go in God that people around you may not have ever seen yet. So I think that's also something that's very important to pray about, because God is doing a new thing definitely every day. And things are different with different people. So I think it is important to mostly just pray about it. But yeah,
because I believe, because you have a great mom who gives you wisdom, and also you pray and you hear God, even with what you shared today wasn't everything that God has showed you. And even with the things you did share, you didn't give all the details.
right.
So there's wisdom in that. God may say you can share this part, but that part don't share, you know? So absolutely. So I think it's good to just, again, emphasize that God doesn't just give us encounters just to give them to us.
Right.
There's a reason behind it. So what would you say, or I should ask, why do you think God has given you the encounters that he's given you?
I think a few reasons, maybe a couple. But first, I think I'll say because of my name, I think.
Okay,
So my first name is Iyana. The way it's spelled, like Iyana, that means God is gracious.
Okay.
So my middle name is Ariel. Well, I guess that's personal for me, because it means Lion of God. But my last name, when I figured out, when I Googled what it meant, like, as a name, it was two meanings. It was prophet of old and those who forgive.
Say it again.
Prophet of old and those who forgive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think it's just that, like, I'm grateful that God has been gracious to me, but I guess to be gracious to other people through me and just to help people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's important because I think sometimes we may at times think or I just want to see what it's like. And there's nothing wrong with that, to have an encounter with God and to see what it's like. You described earlier about feeling God's presence. Maybe someone wants to have that feeling because they've never had it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But when God allows it to happen, it's for a purpose.
Right.
So I just want everybody who's listening to know that the encounters that we have with God should ultimately always push us closer to Him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that's important to understand is that it's a gift. Something I was thinking about was Hebrews 11:6. That's my favorite scripture. But without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists, and that He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek. So I think it's also important in humility to remember that it's a reward. And it's something that I'm definitely grateful for. When I hear a lot about people's experiences when, like, if they don't know God, or if they do, in just ways that, like, not, I guess, to a lot of other people, not being alive for so long that I've experienced, and I'm definitely grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited to have more.
Yeah, yes. Because you're, like you said, you're young, so, and there's a reason behind why God God, you know I'm trying to say your name. God decided to give you these things at such a young age. Some of the things that you shared, I didn't start to experience until I was maybe 19 or 20. So God has His own purpose. He has His own way. And for anyone to think, well, why hasn't God done that with me yet? I'm 15 or I'm 20 or whatever their age is. Well, trust God. Trust God. He's going to use whomever He wants to use. He's going to reveal to you at the time that He thinks is best to reveal to you. So don't think that you're less than if you've not had an experience with God or an encounter with God. So He's going to do what He decides to do ultimately. Right. You didn't, at 3 years old, you didn't just say, God, okay, it's time now. Right. He chose to do that.
Right.
So.
And even with the experiences, like I said, I prayed for some of them, but that depends on whether or not He wants to do it.
Right. That's
and
right.
And when He wants to do it.
That's right.
Because I think it might have been the first encounter that I said I had. I think I was 8 when I started praying for that. And I didn't have it until I was like 13 or 14. Even though that's a few years apart, God's timing is always perfect. Right. And it's different for everybody.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, we're wrapping up, but I want you to share any advice, wisdom, encouragement. You've already shared some, but if there's any more you want to share with people your age or people that may be older or younger, any advice you have for them when it comes to encountering God?
I think it's most of what we said. First, to trust God's timing, because His timing is perfect. Understanding that He has no respect of persons. Like, it's not a specific person that He's like, oh, I like them better. Or I'm going to do this for you because I just like you in this way. It's not like that. God loves everybody. He loves us all. I think it's important. Another part that's very important is just trusting Him to do those things, and also believing that He can. Because I heard, like, there's a lot of people that don't believe that God can do those things anymore. And I remember hearing Pastor Lawrence say it. I know he was quoting somebody, but I don't remember who said it. But when he was saying that God isn't looking for golden vessels, but yielded, that's most important.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be open to Him to do that.
That's right.
It's not that He doesn't do it anymore. A lot of people aren't open to Him for Him to use them in that way.
Very true.
And even if you are, stay diligent, I feel. stay humble. It's going to happen.
That's right. Good stuff. Good stuff. That was awesome advice. And you've definitely shared wisdom beyond your years. So, and I attribute that to just God pouring out his spirit on you. And I want to just make it clear again to everybody who's watching, everyone who's listening, that in Joel, it says that God will pour out his spirit upon all flesh. Sons and daughters shall prophesy. Old men shall dream dreams. So it's any and everyone, like we were saying earlier, any of us can experience God. So thank you again, Iyana, for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It was fun. Can I do another one?
Sure. If the Holy Spirit says, Iyana, I want you to be on Breakthrough Conversations again and talk about this, then absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna pray about
it. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. I hope that you've been blessed and encouraged by this episode. Be sure to like this episode and share it with someone that they may be encouraged as well. And leave a comment just letting us know what blessed you, what stood out. And so again, I want to thank you for tuning in today. Be sure to tune in for a future episode in a couple weeks. Until then, have a wonderful day and be blessed.